Ain't past me. Die! Time it's destroyed for sure.
Man, I honestly don't even know what it is about these games. I can die 50 times over to the same exact boss and still come back scratching my arms fiending for more. Jumping right into it, today we are going to be going over Lies of P. Lies of P is a new AAA Souls-like from Neowitz Games, who honestly I haven't heard of before this title, but they're a South Korean game studio who's been around since 2007. Their previous titles range anywhere from indie to AAA development, but this appears to be their most ambitious release yet. It currently retails for $60 and is available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. The story is inspired by the classic kid story Pinocchio, which for those of you who don't know, long story short, Pinocchio was a story about an animated puppet whose nose grew really long when he lied, and he... In this rendition, while being as vague as possible, you play as a puppet in the gloomy gothic city of Krat. You've been awoken to put a stop to the other evil puppets tormenting the city, while also uncovering the secrets of a disease plaguing the humans who once lived there. I don't want to get too in depth about all the plot elements, and yeah, I know puppets and all sounds kinda corny, but the story itself was actually pretty intriguing, and I found myself genuinely invested in how everything was progressing at times. This game also has a fair bit of choices you can make that'll affect the outcome of certain scenarios and the overall story itself. Games like these that give the player this kind of choice always feel so much more personal too, which is great for the immersion. A lot of the times you're putting yourself in the character's shoes and actually picking how you yourself would personally feel. This game also lays the story out a lot more blatant than an actual From Software title. You don't really have to go searching around the map to figure out the world and its people, it all just kinda gets explained away as you progress. The overall gameplay is exactly what you'd expect from a game like this. You start out level 1, where you pick a class with a base weapon and starting set of perks. In these games, you have to manage your stamina consumption while fighting. The stamina determines how much you're able to sprint, dodge, attack, and parry, and without it, you're defenseless. This keeps people from just straight up button mashing and creates a much more methodical and elaborate combat experience. While I'm on the topic of it though, I don't really like how dull the colors were for the stamina and health. Typically, you're not wanting to intently stare up in the corner of your screen while fighting a huge boss, so the brighter colors of other games helps you see it a bit easier from the corner of your eye. Most of you here already know what's going on in a Souls-like, or have at least seen gameplay of one before, so I'm not going to get too in-depth about all that. We could spend all day talking about what's similar about these games, so I really want to get into what makes Lies of P different from the others. First off, I want to talk about the world. The game itself and the city of Krat are broken up into various parts or acts, meaning it's not exactly open world. You can't exactly run around everywhere in the city. You're confined to the area associated to the act you're currently playing. The various level sections are pretty massive though, with a lot of different secrets and side quests to go uncover. Also, they're not showing you an entire world. The game's completely centered around a city, but the city is massive in scope. Everything is ginormous compared to the character model. Next, I want to get into the puppet arm since it's a major component to the combat. Now yes, I know this is very similar to the prosthetic arm from Sekiro, but this is pretty exclusive to both these titles, and Lies of P tries to put their own twist on the abilities available. I think only this one, the Flame Vent, is a straight rip from Sekiro, and all of the other ones are their own unique ability. Next, the health bar for this game works in two tiers. Strikes will deplete the health bar, but that health isn't fully gone until the second bar is gone. The second bar can be regained from successful hits and parries. This goes for the player and all enemies. This makes it extremely important not to trade too much in boss battles, or you're just going to be throwing your head at a brick wall wondering why their health bar hasn't moved the past 5 minutes. This game really makes you learn the patterns. There's not much room for free shots. They really all feel like second phase Millennia out here, it's crazy. They also introduce a unique way to create weapons. Most weapons in the game can be disassembled into just its blade and hilt. The blade determines the majority of the combat strength and special abilities, and the hilt determines how the sword actually fights. You can mix and match these blades and hilts to create new swords. This is extremely inventive and creates a lot of fun possibilities for combat. While we're on the weapon topic though, we have to talk about the durability. For whatever reason, they added a feature where your weapon can just break on you if you're not keeping it repaired. This was honestly just kinda wild to me when I first figured it out, and I'm really not the biggest fan. Like, oh nice, I've always wanted my weapon to just die on me like an iPhone in the middle of a boss fight. Nice. They also changed the health system to where you can gain an extra health charge when you successfully land hits. This only happens when you're fully out of charges though. Next, they've added cosmetics. They're kinda neat I guess, but it seems completely unnecessary to have this separate from the actual in-game armor. This feature makes it hard to even care or pay attention to what's going on with your armor, because you don't really know when you get new armor, and you just see the same thing anyways. Also, when you die in a boss room, they left the runes outside of the room, so you don't have to keep running in there to grab them, which honestly, pretty nice. That is just fantastic. Switching over to more general gameplay features, this game is long as hell, which isn't a complaint. You definitely get a hefty amount of content for the purchase. There was a few times I thought the game was going to be over and about to wrap up, but it just keeps pushing out more acts. I was here for it. It took me around 30 hours to finish, and there's a couple different endings to the main story, so that adds a bit of replayability. But I don't see that necessarily carrying the game for that long. There's not much as far as different styles of play, so there's not a whole lot to change each experience and make you want to replay. The game has 25 bosses in total. They all have their own unique skill set and are definitely challenging. They all have a ton of combos too, so there's a lot of information to take in for each encounter. A lot of the main story bosses have full second phases too, so you're really in it for the long haul whenever you stumble upon one of those portals. The general enemy variety is pretty good too. Pretty much every part of the city has its own group of enemies, each with their own moves and specific ways of dealing with them. There's no sort of mission or objective screen, so it can be a bit confusing on where to go at times, but I believe this was an intentional decision made by the devs, so the player has to explore more of the map and can't just sprint their way to the boss rooms. The weapons found around the map are all unique and have their own specific styles of use. There's not an overabundance of loot around the world either, so it's easy to know when you actually get something new, and faster to test things out because you don't feel like you have to try out 10 different swords to see what you like best. Like I was saying earlier about the armor though, I never really thought or cared about it because I didn't really know when I picked something up that was armor, and I just saw my costume on the whole time anyways. The only real time I found myself looking into the armor was while fighting a boss to get any sort of boost in health I could find. Jumping on over into the visuals, the art style for Lies of P invokes a heavy gothic steampunk-esque vibe that's set somewhere in the 1800s. The world takes a heavy influence from Bloodborne and other From Software titles. Walking around this city, you feel incredibly small. Everything is just massive in scale and the city feels huge. There's also an in-game day and night cycle, which can change the lighting and atmosphere of different areas you're exploring. These here are some of my favorite landscapes I came across while playing, so I removed the HUD to get a more cinematic type of shot. This game also has cutscenes, which typically play at the beginning and end of big boss battles. They do a great job of adding scale and weight to parts of the story, and help with the overall intrigue. Cutscenes make you feel like you're actually a character there in the story, and it makes you want to care about the story more. The audio for this game, and any Souls-like at that, is just fantastic. The music really kicks in when you're in the middle of a boss fight, or at least that's when you start to notice it. It has a way of making any fight feel like a whole choreographed dance between you and the enemy. It makes every fight feel like the climax to the story. As far as bugs and issues, I didn't really notice anything that was super detrimental to the playing experience at all. There was a few random occurrences of dead bodies glitching around, but it didn't really affect me any. The only real problem you'll probably face is trying to fight against the camera locking you in awkward angles while you're trying to also fight enemies. And it's also worth noting that this game ran really smooth day one of the early access period. Never had any sort of game-breaking crashes or performance issues. I will say though, I completed my first playthrough on PC, so I'm not exactly sure how the console experience will be, but consoles typically have an easier time running games day one anyways. All in all, this game is so incredibly identical to the original Souls games that it's almost hard to even tell you're playing a different game at times. Which is nice and feels like a safe bet, but there's nothing really in here that's like, oh wow, I've always wanted to see this in a Souls game, nice. They didn't really reinvent much. For me personally, the best Souls-like games have been games like Nioh, Remnant from the Ashes, or Jedi Fallen Survivor. All of these feel like they took the premise of a Souls-like game and created their own product with the same mechanics. This is a game made for fans of the Souls-like genre, but I don't necessarily see it making new fans, if that all makes any sense. I also don't see this game maintaining a very high player count. Like, once people beat the main story, it'll probably just go back up on the old shelf until they have some sort of DLC content. And with all that out and all that being said, if we had to wrap this up in a rating, I'm trying to get more serious with it, we'll go just 1 to 10. I think I'm going to hit this with the solid 7. It certainly doesn't top its From Software predecessors, but you can't deny the work put into the content. Lies of P plays good and is a fun and worth it adventure if you enjoy these kind of sword fighting action role playing games. So that's gonna about wrap it up here for the review today. If any of you are also playing Lies of P currently or have already beat the game, leave a comment down below and let me know how your experience was or has been so far. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. And yeah, this has been Lunar, and I will catch you guys later.